Hello, everyone. We have a fantastic evening in store, so I'm just going to get right to reading bios. I'm going to read the bios for all three of our guests and then bring everybody out. So we're going to start with Candy Milo. Candy Milo started her voiceover career with Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toon Adventures in the late 1980s, and it's been nonstop ever since, with over 600 roles to her name. You know her as one of your favorites, whether it's Dexter from Dexter's Lab, Cheese, Madam Foster, and Coco from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Astro Boy, or the Flea from Mucha Lucha. She currently appears in Looney Tunes, covering all of June Foray's characters, including Granny and Witch Hazel, Middle School Moguls, Where's Waldo, and Cleopatra in Space. Prior to cartoon voicing, Candy was in the first national tour of Dreamgirls with Jennifer Holliday, and it was directed by Michael Bennett. Elegies for Angels, Punks, and Raging Queens, and To Sir with Love with Stephanie Mills. She's also done over 150 commercials, including being spokeswoman for Mervyn's Department Stores, where she wrote the catchphrase, "Open, open, open." Recent TV credits include Boomers with Barry Pearl, Wilfred, and Girl Meets World. She's written a memoir called Surviving the Odd about her very unusual childhood. She continues to do local and regional equity theater stand-up at her cabaret show and is also producing and starring in a Justin Tanner play called Voice Lessons. Other than that, she tries to nap. Nancy Linari. Nancy's career as an actress has spanned several decades and genres. She started on stage with Chicago's The Second City and has leading roles in I'm Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road, Ruthless, the musical original cast recording, and I'm Not Rappaport. She's currently portraying the iconic Aunt May in both Insomniac's hit Spider-Man on PS4 and in the animated series on Disney XD, Marvel's Spider-Man. Nancy's first TV credits include This Is Us, Life in Pieces, Bosch, Modern Family, Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life, and most recently, the reboot of Mad About You. She was featured in David Fincher's Academy Award-nominated The Social Network. She is an award-winning audiobook narrator and has been seen and heard in hundreds of commercials. As a live stadium announcer, she has had the honor of introducing Prince Harry and First Lady Michelle Obama at the Invictus Games Orlando 2016, an international multi-sport event created by Prince Harry to honor wounded military servicemen, women, and their families. Nancy is a proud member of both SAG-AFTRA and AEA. And last but certainly not least, Lori Allen. She starred as Diane Simmons on Family Guy, Pearl the Whale on SpongeBob SquarePants, which is going on to its 20th season, Sue Richards, the Invisible Woman on Marvel Comics' The Fantastic Four, and the boss in Metal Gear Solid video game trilogy. She's proud to be a part of the Pixar family, voicing characters in WALL-E, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Monsters University, Bonnie's mom in Pixar's Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4, and Mother's Sadness in Inside and Out. At the first annual Voice Arts Awards, which is the Academy Awards for voiceovers, Lori took first place prizes for outstanding body of work. A native of the Washington, D.C. area, her passion for entertaining led the 5-year-old actress to make her television debut as the star of a Shakey's pizza commercial. She went on to graduate with honors from NYU Tisch School of the Arts and set off cutting her teeth on the comedy circuit as a longtime member of New York's Gotham City Improv, which is Groundlings East. She now has a thriving voiceover and on-camera coaching practice as a means of giving back, as so many mentors did for her. Please help me welcome this gaggle of super underachievers. Ladies, come on. Welcome. What a thrill to have you all here. This is going to be a lot of fun. Great. So to get us started, I'd love to just hear about how you got started in voiceover. What was that journey?
Knowing Candy. No, I'm just kidding. I just figured out we were thinking about how long we've known each other. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
A long, long time. Very fortunate. I got into the biz because my parents were in the biz. They were theater majors and radio minors back in the early 60s at American University, which is a really cool college back east where I'm from. And thank goodness that they are super creative and silly and have a great, think just excitement for the biz and the spoken word and all that, and plays and directing. And I think if I'd come home and said I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, they would have thought I was crazy, absolutely nuts. So I started off thinking like I definitely want to do musical theater, which I know all three of us have that in common as well, all four of us. And then I was like, I think I want to, I don't know, maybe like voiceovers will be my day job. So I went home and had my dad do me a demo reel. He had his own ad agency at that point. And then I brought it back up to New York, and somebody that I was coaching with was like, not as quite as edgy as it should be. And I was like, okay. So I went to someone who helped jazz it up a bit. And then I got introduced to Buckwald, and I actually started in promos and then on camera and went from there. And then I was like, I should move out to Los Angeles to do more like comedy stuff and animation, and that's really it in a nutshell.
Great. Candy.
Yeah, I was hip-pocketed at William Morris by somebody who passed away in the middle of the AIDS crisis, which was a horrible, horrible time in our history. And he was plopped in the ground and taken away by his family, who did not know of his life out here. They came out from Brooklyn and were horrified. And so we had a big party up. It was the old Carlos and Charlie's on Sunset. And so they had me get up and sing, because that's all I really wanted to do. And so I used to do a bit in a club act about 5 people fighting in an elevator. And so somebody said, do your bit. So I did it, and everybody's crying and clapping. It was surreal and so wrong. And a woman came up to me and handed me her business card and said, oh, Aaron would want you to be with us. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get a record deal. This is so great. And I looked at it, and it said, at the time, Nina Nissenholtz, VP commercials and voiceovers. And I was like, goodbye. And she found me in the phone book.
Oh, wow.
And she had me, at that time I lived in a little teeny
Did you have
apartment.
a pager too?
Yeah, I didn't have a pager. I couldn't afford it. Pre-pager. So I lived in the area, and she called me up and said, do you realize I'm from William Morris? And I was like, yeah, do you realize that only people whose careers have died do voiceover? And she was like, wait till I tell you what they pay. So I walked down and I auditioned for Dentine, Denny's, and Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toons. And I walked out and I met everybody and walked home, and I had booked all 3.
Whoa.
And so for me, it was, beginner's luck. But for me, I'm the daughter of a stand-up. My dad would be 103. For anybody who would know, he was the original Call for Philip Morris boy. Before it was a smaller person. It was radio and live, he did it. So stand-up, singing, doing voices, and was kind of my milieu. That's what I was most comfortable doing, and that's what it was. And just so you know, it wasn't all roses. It was 5 years before. I was 4 years into Tiny Toons before they signed me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure that I was not a fluke and that I would work. And that's how I got into it.
Great.
Yay.
Well, I did not get the first 3 things I auditioned for. Let's be clear there. I kind of got into voiceover through the back door. I started, joined all the unions when I was in Chicago. I was a stage actress, and you do commercials, and mostly I was an on-camera actress, a stage and on-camera actress. And in Chicago, there are several ad agencies who are based in Chicago. And at the time, if you did a commercial on camera for somebody, the writers would get to know you a little bit, and they would bring you in to do lots of demos. So I came into it that way. But when I moved out here, voiceover was still a very minor part of my career. I sort of fell into my first commercial agency, had Vanessa Gilbert as the voiceover agency agent who liked me. And I'm not the queen of voiceover. I work a lot of different contracts in this business, in these unions, to make a living, and I always have. So I think it's only stunts and dancers, and I'm holding out. I think I could maybe do that. But so I'm one of those people where I saw the work starts to go away in one area, and I think, okay, I'm going to train in another area. I'm going to start to do. I get older, and I see the parts are changing. Or I had children, and I thought, oh, I'm not as available. I better up my game in this. So I kind of came in through the back door on for voiceover.
So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about that, how important it is to kind of be malleable and flexible and go to where the work is and be adaptable, and how you do that.
I think it's just about developing each part of your talent. Every part of your body and all of your quadrants, if you will, has an ability. So when I tell people I have a daughter that is 28 and is an actor, and I have encouraged her, Wendy is an amazing dance teacher as well as a dancer and singer. And trust me, I don't throw the compliments easily. I'm not.
Wendy and I sometimes take her dance class together.
It's a very hilarious
You
thing.
have not asked me? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I can't
so
wait.
I was going to say, I tell my daughter, go to dance class. She said, I'm not a dancer. And I said, and when you're 45, you still won't be. But at some point, you're not going to be adorable. And I, like Nancy, I was hearing myself, Nance, when you were like, when the voiceover changes, my pitch has dropped. I can't do the little girls anymore. I wrote a book. I take an on-camera acting class. I take a scene study class. I go where the work was. I used to say that if I didn't have career ADD, I'd probably have an Oscar. But I go where whoever will have me.
I've always said, my late husband once said something to me once. He said, you seem to be striving for the people who aren't interested in you. You know how actors are always wanting the agent that doesn't want you. You want the job that doesn't want you. And he said, you know, you might want to think about cultivating your fans at the same time you're doing this. So analyze it. Where are you getting attention and positive feedback and jobs? And put more energy and focus in those areas. But mine is really, it's really out of necessity to me. I see one area, I need to make a living, and I see one area not doing it, and I'm always in a class. I'm back in improv class now after I started in improv, and I'm back in improv class now.
You need to tell me about that, because I was in the Groundlings in New York, and I got like a little note so I could maybe skip beginners, and then it was very competitive, and everybody got in but me that took this little class, and my ego is so big. Like to this day, I'm like, I could teach it. I've done like, you know, a celebrity guest thing, but I was like, I got to go back and take it myself because I love it. And that's thank you for that. Thank you for both of all of you guys for sharing that. And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, since 2008, for those of you who guys do commercial reads, you know, the real read, non-announcery, conversational, real person. I remember just being like, dick, 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 dick. Like, I don't sound like that. Like Diane Simmons on Family Guy is based off of my mom, and that's what she sounds like. She's a news promo announcer. And so I realized that if I was just thinking, like, let me just talk to someone, and then all of a sudden my reads were much more like, let me just come up and give you some information. And they were much more like sort of naturally just like, instead of like going like this or introducing the new, it was much more like, you know, that's the trend right now. Nobody wants to be yelled at or talked to or preached, and especially now, again, it was right around the housing crisis time, and now again with, you know, what's going on out in the world. But anywho, I realized, I was like, oh, I need to, since my voice is lower, it's always been, you know, at my household, it was like, hello, my sister and my aunt and I, we'd all answer the phone and no one would know who was who. But getting different agents and diversifying for people that now do more like promo and news affiliates and radio imaging and things like that. For the first time, I'm taking those meetings and I'm updating my reels. And I wrote a pilot and produced and did a pilot. And oddly enough, there was a bunch of voice people in it. And
I'm not, however.
have that yes. But there will be, because there's going to be a big Comic-Con scene, which is going to be so fun. So you know, staying active and getting back into class. And I was talking to take even one voice lesson so that you know how to, where your instrument lays, how to use your voice properly is the most invaluable thing. Even one or two lessons, just so that you can then have like a proper warm up and warm down. Because even if you're doing audiobooks, narration, commercial, sometimes you're just getting over a cold, or the heat is on, it's chilly out, or you're tired, or you've traveled. You have to be able to know how to use your instrument and keep it warmed up and warmed down. And so I'm always just learning new things, and I coach now and I teach, and I enjoy that so much and help make people's demos. And so that brings me great joy to kind of pass it forward. So
how important do you think it is your acting chops to bring into the booth?
Can
Talk
I
a little bit about
answer
that. Yes.
I work, thank you God, a lot, despite my attitude. No. I say that I have worked with what I would deem the flavor of the month, with someone that sounds like this, and they come in and it's really amazing, and they're talking like this, and I think, I can do you. Can you do me? Because the voice only goes so far. What was the expression used, Nancy, as we were talking? The cost, what was it?
Oh, cost consultants.
Cost consultants
running the show now.
Yeah,
in,
on an
the
animated
commercial world.
series, to be able to be cost efficient, you must do a multitude of characters. Okay, they don't necessarily need to flip on a dime. But if you are not an actor and you haven't in your mind created who this character is, understand the beats in a script, all you are is that sound that is between 12 and 16. Judging the Emmys, I do for animation, and we did an experiment, and we put several shows from Disney and several new shows from DreamWorks up, because they had submitted their stars. And absolutely everyone spoke on this note. Every single girl across every single one. And I thought, and that is the typical flavor of the month. Come to me in 6 years and let me see which of those young people is on another show using another thing. But I think that it is really tough if you can't act. I think acting class is amazing. It can only help you. But to have a fabulous instrument with a quirky voice will be a 3-year fest. And then they'll say, well, you sounded like Debbie Downer on that show, so we don't want you on this show. We need a different character. So you have to actually know how to create one. It's really tough.
I think voice acting too, people think like, I have a really cool voice, I can do voiceover, right? Which is sometimes true, and sometimes now, like again, the case with commercial, and even in animation, I've been getting a little bit of, doesn't need to be over the top, you know what I mean? More real voices, if you will. But I love the like really large, like crazy, I love those characters, but I have to like calm down and make sure I sound somewhat like a normal person from time to time. But with animation, with commercial, there has to be like a pre-life going before you open your mouth, because like, especially if it's like Old Navy pajama bottoms, like if I'm like Old Navy pajama bottoms, you just like automatically tune it out because it's salesy, So Mary Lynn Wisner gave me a tip that I'm sure everyone, probably a lot of us know who that is, about like talking yourself in. So you can kind of be like, that would be the best gift ever. Who doesn't want pajama bottoms? Oh, pajama bottoms are now on sale. Boom, you've talked yourself in, but you've been talking to someone. So whether it's commercial or promo, but especially in animation, I find that knowing who I'm talking to, what just happened, why am I speaking now, what's my point of view, what's a strong point of view about the person, place, scene, thing that's happening right now. You've never said these words before. It's just like live action on camera. Same thing, the same rules apply, there just happens to be a mic. And you can't raise an eyebrow, you can't put your hand on your hip, you don't have that like sassy, like, You can't do a hair flip, you can't do any of that. So like, who are you talking to? And you can add on all sorts of different emotions once you get the basic script breakdown, like Candy was saying, and then put your own spin on it. Maybe the character's drunk, maybe she's horny, maybe those were things that happened to me a lot. No, I'm kidding. But maybe some of those emotions that you can layer into your read, wide-eyed, like excited, like you can just add on some great things to your reads, but they have to come from a place of what you're talking about. And also we're all in our booths, right? Back in my day, we all went to advertising agencies. We went to our agent's office to read. Now we're at home in our booths, or the booths here, and in class a lot. And it can be kind of lonely. So to have a community of people that you're in class with and scene study and all that stuff, and doing events like this where you're just out in the world and saying hi and having a life, so you bring something to your work. You have some characters, some funny characters to draw on, and for commercial, like I put a little stick lady. As long as I know I'm talking to someone, then at least I'm more than halfway there, in terms of the acting. Who am I? I'm talking to someone every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy, did you have something?
I was just going to say, it's all telling a story. It doesn't matter if you're doing a cartoon or a commercial or an audiobook, you're always telling a story. And I mean, that's what acting, we're telling.
Even promos,
we're storytellers. Yeah, we're storytellers.
Tonight at 9.
So,
it's like adding to the story, yeah.
So I do think it would be disingenuous to say if you have a fantastically quirky, interesting, or deep, resonant voice, you're not going to work, because you might work a lot. But it does help. And I think the acting is what sort of Candy's saying. That's the longevity of somebody who can act.
Right.
But let's not underestimate that if you have a fantastic voice, you are going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, and I will say you will initially, and then the industry is very small. So you will go through the 10 casting people and the 10 large agencies, and you will get feedback after about 3 or 4 years that it's the same read, and you will cycle out. So the best advice we can give you is to always work on your acting. And if you do have that squeaky high thing, energy and vibrancy helps a lot. Attitude helps a lot. Acting helps the most.
And trends and listening to commercials. It's so much fun to be like, and your homework is to listen to commercials. You'll find that radio stuff definitely is a little bit more energy, a little brighter because there's no visual to go with it. TV, listen to promos. Like I'm redoing my promo reel and I was like, I haven't done that since the 70s. And so I'm watching a lot of things. Like I was like, oh, I could play a judge and I could be on Dateline. You know what I mean? So I have to, I have to watch that stuff and to listen because I got to keep up with trends. We all do.
Which is
whether
fun.
you like it or not, right?
Yeah.
So
It's great
absolutely. So as women, what have you seen change in the industry during your time, and what's gotten better, and what do we still need to work on?
First of all, as a woman in voiceover, sometimes we all know, well, I shouldn't say we all, but I'm guessing that a lot of us have experienced, men and women, on either side of the camera, class, life in general, that when women assert ourselves, we're bitchy. When in actuality, we're just setting boundaries and saying what we need to say. And so there's that side of that. And always take care of yourself, because I had a sexual harassment thing that happened to me in the voiceover business, and I didn't report it at the time. I've reported it to my agents, and I wish I had, because that person would be out of business, and it's everything I could do not to tell you afterwards, tell you who it is. But so that's very serious, and that stuff would not fly right now. So thank God that we're in a time where diversity and speaking up for yourself and others is super, super important. But also women, we're more than half of the population. So, right? And so it's so important and we are storytellers, as Nancy said, and so we are the ones setting the narrative. You'll hear these great spots too, and women-driven shows, animation on camera, but you will hear the woman driving the narrative. And a lot of these spots where you just hear a woman talking about the environment or this and that, or staying connected via her Apple phone with her kids and grandkids. So we like rule things, we rule, we got our shit together, And so I think it's really important to remember the power that you have as a female creator and a content creator, and use your voice wisely.
Right.
When I started, it was Sally Kirkland selling
Valley Ranch.
In Valley Ranch, and Terry Apple, nobody understanding if she was a boy or a girl for Home Depot. It was the stick figure. We women rule animation now. We are the only creatures whose voice doesn't change. So when we do a little boy, we can do it for 20 years. And I just remember being in a session a long time ago, and I made a suggestion for a character and asked if I could, and improv is my strong suit, and I asked if I could improv it, and someone looked at me and said, know your role. And I thought, one day, when I'm as old as I am right now, I'm gonna tell you what you can do with your role. But my role is to make sure that what I see as the end of the character, at least my opinion gets there. I think that we are more than 50% of every session, yet when there are bumps in salary, they'll always go to the male character first and do that, and then you'll scale down from there. There's still disparity. I don't even want to talk about women of color, because that's a whole other game. That is what is happening now, which is great, is that there you get a piece of copy, and at the bottom it says you can just be anything and audition for this. It used to be like, don't audition for the black girl role or the Latina role or this boy role because we're going to fill it with that. Now I see more Latina men and women and black men and women and Asian men and women auditioning for absolutely everything, and it's more equitable in voiceover than it has been in a long time, because usually the best voice wins, and that wasn't always the case. I speak fluent Spanish, and I, for the longest time, just did everything. And because I spoke Spanish and I have some Latin blood, I was able also to do an accent in the character, because I was saying that was okay, that I could do it. And now I don't do it. I don't speak with an accent, so I don't do an accent. And I think that's what has changed. It's widened up, and you know how like you do something and there are lanes. So what's happened is all the lanes are gone. It's still the same width, but you can go anywhere. There are no more chutes that you have to go down. And I think that's really great. I think you'll see a huge change when you see more female representation and more females that look like me, my age, my color, my everything, at the top of the chain. That's when it'll change for the rest of us. Because there's plenty of me in a room, but the person who signs my check is usually a man.
Yeah. And diversity. I've never been so bummed to be a white woman over 50. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's who we are. We are multicultural, multiracial. Like I remember, none of us are just one thing anymore. You know, my dad's Jewish, my mom's Southern Baptist. When I go back home to visit my mom, I'm like, hey y'all, how you doing? And I talk to my dad, in New York, like I end up coming home talking like this, So like pull on your roots of like who you come from and where you are. And a great exercise for animation stuff is like finding out all the... Did we vamp long enough for Candy's boobs? I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
But finding out the people that you naturally have in your head, like all the crazy people, like relatives and people you've dated and their parents and college roommates, and like all those people. I mean, Charlie Adler, a very good friend of ours, he's like, who do you know that's like loud and drunk? And I'm like, I can't say that name now out loud. But so just pulling on all of those crazy people. And now that's okay that we're not just playing them, we are them.
Yeah,
we
that's
make
great.
up that
I
body.
love that. Yeah.
What do you, Nance? What do you think?
Nancy?
What's changed?
Well, I'm just thinking, sometimes I'm not quite as optimistic as everybody else. I'm just thinking of all the movies I've seen this year.
Yeah.
I know.
How you can go through it, like you can watch Ford v. Ferrari and see like 4 women on the screen.
Once upon a time in Hollywood.
There's a lot of movies. So when you think about that, I think about the ADR session that went with that. And it was probably 7 men and 2 women. And that's all they need. So it's a cultural change everywhere. I do think that the Me Too movement has brought about an awareness of everybody wants to be politically correct and get applause for hiring more women. So you're seeing more women as the voice of a station, doing promos. I mean, I think it's having an effect, but I mean, look at the big hoopla over the director nominations for the films recently women so I think it's a long time coming. I think it's moving along more than it was, but I think it has a ways to go.
Agreed, yeah.
I don't even remember what the original question was because I was so occupied with Candy's
You did really well.
breasts.
And you fixed Candy's boobs. So you get the award for tonight. Oh gosh, no, don't be sorry. Ladies, what has been your favorite gig to date? Your favorite voiceover gig to date?
Following Candy was really fun, but that wasn't on camera thing. I was like, oh my gosh. Got to be in the Candy Milo lane for Mervin's.
Oh.
She was open, and I was reality check, and I was like, oh my gosh, to be mistaken for Candy. And I was like, thanks. Thank you so much. I don't know. I probably would still have to just say like Pearl Crabs because she's just going, and I just recorded her yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're going into our 20th year, which is ridiculous. I
That's
can't.
amazing.
That's
It is amazing. It's weird.
incredible.
And my very first. Thank you. I'll take that to the cast. You guys should come see Tom Kinney and the High Seas. By the way, do you guys want to go? He is in the band. His band is amazing. It's got like strings and horns. And if anybody's seen him, he's playing at the Grove on Saturday night. It's
fun.
outrageous. Because he hates social media, but someone's doing their. His like Tom Kinney, the High
Yeah.
Seas, amazing. He's now directing, so that's really cool. My very first series was with Candy, and I remember taking a class like we all do and should and still do and always will. And I met Chris Zimmerman and Charlie Adler and Stu Rosen, may he rest in peace, and someone else, Andrea Romano and one other person I can't recall. And Chris brought me in, and I played Gary Owens, if anyone's old enough to remember Laugh-In, played his niece, like his fighter pilot niece with like an attitude. Talk about the business changing. When I auditioned really quickly, Chris was like, "You have a foul mouth." I was like, "I effing know." So she's like, "Do a whole blue take and I'll just bleep it out." You can't do that. No one does that anymore. So I did it, and that's how I got the job, was just being like my regular self. Now we can sort of do that without the F-bombs and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being in a room with Candy and Jim Cummings and Frank Welker and Charlie Adler and maybe Mark Hamill's on. Who else was in that show?
Barry
Gordon.
Barry Gordon was a president of SAG.
Yes, he was a president at the time.
He was a president of
and that's
SAG.
how we all became sort of union gals. And so, so that's, I think maybe Pearl is my favorite still, and the Pixar stuff, and Diane on Family Guy was certainly very long-running and well-loved show. And voice.
I'm thinking, but I have so many blessings. Every time I get a job, I think, oh man, I'm so lucky. This is so great. But I sang on a ride at Disneyland. It was the worst ride they'd ever had. And they closed it before I got a chance to hear it. But my daughter went to Disneyland, and it was Luigi's Flying Tires, and it was supposed to be something that it ended up not being, and kids got off the ride incredibly angry, and it was they got rid of it. But I sang in Italian. I sang C'è la Luna, and I got Gabby tape recorded it, and we recorded it at the Capitol Records building, and I pulled in, and there was a spot that said Disney with the little castle, and then it said Candy Milo recording artist, and I was like, and after I've been doing this 30 years, that was like, I was 7 years old. It was the best job of my life. And I guess when you have a kid and she goes to Disneyland and she's got the phone and she was telling anybody, and she's like 25 years old, she's got ears on. It's like, it's my mom. And 5-year-olds were like, this ride sucks. This ride sucks. We've been in line 4 hours hearing C'è la Luna Mezz'amara. So that was my best.
Oh, that's great.
I love that it was singing. I met Candy doing a musical a million years ago. That's how we met. I'm going to say I have two. I'm not in a lot of series like there, but the very first series I did was The Addams Family.
Oh my God.
And when I showed up for the first day, first of all, talk about women in voiceover. I was not known in the animation community, and I still remember sitting in Elaine Craig's, which was a casting office we all used to go to a lot, and I walked in the door, the whole women, and somebody said, "Oh, Nancy, congratulations on Addams Family," and every woman in the room went, I was like, oh, man. Anyway, but I showed up for the first day of work, and it was Carol Channing and John Aston and Rip Taylor, and then these names, Jim Cummings, Rob Paulson, Pat Fraley. And I think of myself as being sort of a poised, well-spoken, kind of witty woman. I was like I was in a coma compared to these people, because they all do it in like 50 different voices, and I don't have a whole lot of voices. I have different people I can be in different situations, and I think maybe recently, when we're talking about our kids liking something, I'm lucky enough to be Aunt May in a couple things in Spider-Man right now. And for my son in college last year, I did the motion capture as well for the video game. And for him to text me from school with the promo that was airing because I didn't tell my, when you sign these NDAs, I'm really serious about them. I don't tell a soul. And it was a text from him and it said, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" And I just wrote back, "Not until midnight tomorrow." So it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun also to play, to audition for the same character in two different versions of something in a town like this that's filled with, every woman in the room could play this. And to get them both, it was like, whoa, something about me was the motherly, maternal Aunt May this week, the week that happened. Nothing, I didn't do anything different, or I didn't even know what I was auditioning for because, they had funny names because it was an NDA. Anyway, that would maybe be it for me.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that speaks a little bit to across the industry. I feel like when you're right for something, you're right for it. And you walk into that room, and if you allow yourself to be your authentic self.
Can I just say, only women do this to other women. And we got to stop this one thing. I am going to knock her out of that role, and I'm going to take all of her roles, and I'm going to do that. Men don't do that to other men. They say, I'm going to create a role that they're going to add to this show, and if she can do it, I can do it. She can't be on every show. So, and I just want to say, women are not your enemies. The enemy is the little girl that you haven't healed that stares at you in the mirror. That's your enemy. The little boy that you haven't healed. That will stop you cold every time. But women and we actors, we have to help one another, and no one can take your job. It's either yours or it ain't.
Right.
Amen,
And there
sister.
is nobody behind the scenes, no agent is calling, bribing anybody to get somebody else in over you. It isn't happening. Every agent has got way too many clients. You have to create your own avenue, but those who are successful should be your heroes, not your enemies.
Amen to that.
Right?
And also to that, that's beautiful, and that was really helpful. Also, what you said about, it sounds like I've just been in therapy and like on the therapist couch too long, but I really do believe that like the things that make us uniquely like us, and like you're weird, like you trying to not to be weird, and you trying to not have that weird, like maybe stutter, or like sometimes I had to get over like a lisp. I was like, I have a lisp, and this was like 25 years ago. He's like, yeah, you have a lisp, and I was like, oh dear. Right, so I work on that. So all the things that you think make you weird, or that you're trying to put away or get rid of, are the things that actually like pop through in an audition. And also, get through your shit, because this is an inherently narcissistic business. So if you haven't worked on some of your family of origin BS, like get to it, get busy, so that shit's behind you. So when you step into the booth and you're behind the mic, what matters is you and the world that you've created. If it's just on the page, you happen to get for animation, sometimes you get a drawing, sometimes you don't, and you have to make all that up, right? So I feel like the more you can get that stuff behind you, because you're only competing against yourself. So it's like, you may as well just have so much fun and then like drop the mic and be like, I left it in the booth. Yes. Fuck it. I left it in the booth. You know what I mean? Because who else is, do you, everybody else is taken. Like really just do you and support everybody else and be like, how are you doing? Like just hearing that Candy had booked a big commercial, I was just like, yay.
Yep.
And I was spying on Nancy's Twitter feed, and it cracks me up, this funny bit that she did. You'll go, it's very funny. You have to go look at her Twitter feed. It's hysterical. And so, yes, women supporting women and supporting men everybody to support each other and go, and if anybody's got that negative BS, like see you later. It's 2020, we're going into a new year.
The industry is very small. So all of your poop stinks up a room very quickly. And everybody,
you could quote Candy on that if you want.
I think that's merch. Yeah, all of your poop stinks up a room very quickly.
Yeah.
It's good. Good. I just like to say for the record that Lori and I are new friends, but these two ladies have been incredible advocates for me and have been nothing but entirely generous and forthright. And I think it's so important to find your tribe of people. As I find my way back into voiceover, I've just had such good luck in terms of the people that I've had in my corner, and I'm so grateful for it. And I think it's so important what you guys are saying. Surround yourself with excellent people.
And it's not to say when you hear somebody got something that you didn't get. It is so normal to just stab yourself a little bit.
Sure.
But understand that comes from you not getting it, wanting it, needing it, that person getting it, you don't know their day. You don't know their life. You don't know their arc. You don't know what's happened. But honor that. That's really okay, that little jealousy thing. But honest,
Well, it just
if I
means
can,
you want it. You
yes,
really want it.
You just can't make the focus of your rise the demise of somebody else.
Right.
Years
Like
ago, you go.
ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to say one quick thing. Like, you booking a voiceover job does not equal like success. I have a great day. Aha, I've made it. Right? Because that's just setting yourself up, sets me up for failure all the time. So like our jobs, right, as voice actors and as human beings, is to have a good, full, rich life. Are you seeing your friends? I was like, this holiday season is a little blue. I have a parent who's very, very ill. Am I going to go out and say, hey, Candy, girls, do you want to go out for a drink? Do you want to go out for a walk? Do you want to go have coffee? Do you want to go like scoop potato salad at a homeless shelter? Because there are people that have it far worse than we do. Go help animals, read to kids. You know, there's stuff that speaks to you, like go do that and be a part of people's lives in a way that takes you out of your own, because I know me, my brain is like boop. So if I can find something that's higher self stuff, then that keeps me grounded in this stuff.
Don't let your poop stink up the room.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Ladies, what do you think goes into, well, no, I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. What advice would you give to some of the aspiring voice actors here? What is good advice for people just starting out?
You go, Nancy. Sorry, I talked a lot last time.
No. Well, this kind of ties into what I was going to say, is that some years ago, in one of the many classes I took a class with David Craig, who taught how to sing, how to do auditions for musical auditions, singing auditions. And he was baffled at a conversation some actors were having, because they were talking about how disappointed they were. They'd gone in, they really wanted the job. And he said, oh, well, there's the mistake. You have to walk into every audition with your goal of doing the best version of this role. You're going to show them how you would do this role. And I was sort of thinking, oh, this is so Hallmarky. I'm just not, it's way too woo-woo for me. I'm way too from Chicago, feet on the ground, blue collar for this. And then the more I thought about it, he said, well, if everybody in the room goes into that audition room with the goal of having the job, 99% people fail that day. And you're going to fail most of the time, because we don't get most of the jobs we audition for. So he just, so one of the things to me is you have to, and it's hard because you really want the job. That's the point. But the goal has to be, how can I do the very best version of this role today, so that you don't get in the car and just, you know, hit your head on the steering wheel because you didn't do it. So that's something I have to remind myself all the time. I remind my friends of it, is that our goal cannot be every day just to get the job, because then multiply that by everybody. We're all losers that day. Right. And to be a loser too many days in a row gets a little wearing on you, you know? So I don't know if that helps.
Certainly.
Yeah. I think my advice would be that voiceover can only be one of the things that you do. It used to be that you had very few stations and you had very little content. So you could only do voiceover because you were on one of the 25 shows, or on a lot of the 25 shows on the 3 networks that they played all over the world, all over the day. You could make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now with streaming, you don't make ugats. You don't make anything. You see it 6 months down the line. It's impossible to account for. So I would say to diversify, let go, as Nancy would say, let go of the outcome, because oftentimes the outcome does not look like what you think it does. Every time you go into a room, make a memory, make a friend. And when you're done, leave.
Yes.
Because they can't talk about you if you're still there. And if you're still there, they won't hire you because they will assume you have no place to go. So a winner leaves. And I can't tell you, we all know people who are there eating at the craft table for hours after their audition. Just leave. Just leave. Bring a sandwich, put it in your car, but leave. So professionalism, diversify. I tell my daughter this. I wish that it could be like it was 30 years ago, where you could be like on 2 series and have a house. You're not going to be paid the residual money that you did. So diversify, act, sing, dance, knit, work in a store, do your thing. But it has to be one of the things that you do, and everything that you do, you should do well.
I don't think I have really anything to add to that. I just echo the diversity thing, because as you know, as trends come and go, as men's voices change up and down, and all that kind of stuff. You know, what are you doing that feeds your soul? What are you doing? Are you being a good person? Are you out in the world, and are you helping somebody else on their project? Like, say yes to. Do you need any help with that? Sure, I'll bring bagels. Like, whatever, you know. So saying yes to other people's projects, and really knowing the trends, and really and just doing your best. And if you feel like you did a good job, you did a good job. And if you feel happy with yourself, you know. Also, I was talking with a friend about this the other day. If I'm on take like 5, take 6, I'm done. I either need to step away or it's done, and it's fine. I just need to hear for like a little bobble, like I was doing an on-camera thing, and I inverted like 3 things. I'm so dyslexic. I do it all the time. It is my big hang-up for like on-camera stuff that I'm like, shit, you know, I've done it for voiceover stuff. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I mean, sometimes if you're in a producer session or you're at the network level, or you're going in for Disney for the writers and creators, you want to make sure your word perfect. For voiceover, thank gosh we get to do this. But I think it's important to just know that to put your own stamp on things without being obnoxious is also really, really helpful. Like, where is your funny? Can you navigate the jokes and navigate and land and the twists and turns and copy and animation copy especially too?
Also, I would say don't confuse not getting the job for not having done a fantastic job at the audition.
Building relationships.
Because you can do a great job, and they just decided you sound like their ex-wife, or you don't fit something else in it. So it's really easy to judge ourselves and beat ourselves up for not getting it. But it doesn't mean you didn't do a great job. It just means you weren't the one they chose that day.
Not today.
And that's hard. I'm not saying, believe me, that's not easy.
And as we all age, it isn't like, you know, I know, right? As we all grab a little drink from the cup of older, I don't play the game. I'm not going to walk red carpets. I'm not going to go to this party and that party. I'm just not going to do it, and I'm not going to be that person that does do that. Maybe it hurts me, maybe it doesn't, but there are fewer and far between jobs, period. Many creators are taking the lead roles and putting their friends in it, and studios are grabbing these kids out of CalArts. Also, don't hang on to that, because plenty are not. Plenty of those kids get into a machine like Warner Brothers, and then they're just part of it. Cartoon Network is very big on hiring people who are creating and voicing their own shows. They last 3 seasons, and then they're gone. So they roll through these people. Don't let it all just, I think if the 3 of us were to put it together, it would just be keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Don't listen to anybody. The no is for somebody else. The game is wide open. Women are definitely a piece of it, and I would love to see women of a certain age get a little more a representation, so that we'd have a better chance. I mean, I was dying. I was thinking of Ford and Ferrari, the same thing. I just looked at that and went, okay. And just so you know, in case you think that women don't sell films, Little Women, all the posters are of men. For the movie Little Women, all the posters are of men, are of the boy. So I'm just going to say things have to change.
So we got room to, you know, that's why it's going to take everybody being fabulous and being on their game and having their unique voices, literally and otherwise, right? Because that's how we're just going to keep be the change.
And just know there are a lot of people out there you're competing with that are good. There's a fact, I do audiobooks, something that I started to do to create for myself because I wasn't getting enough work in other areas. Since I started maybe 10 years ago, someone just told me at the union, there are 600% more narrators competing now. Wow. It's partly technology makes it easier. So there are just a lot of people out there doing it who do it well. So sometimes I walk in a room and I think they could just throw a tennis ball out here and whoever catches it could do the job. Really. So, I mean,
I just want to say for Nancy and Lori and I, and Wendy too, there is no such thing as I'm going to just do these 3 non-union jobs through Voices 1, 2, 3
Amen.
to get my feet in the door. Your feet are never getting in the door, and you're never getting paid. Period. Meanwhile, that person that got you that job got $25,000 from the company to find you where they're going to throw a 50 your way. No agent thinks that any of that is good. They will, first thing an agent will ask you to get you to brag is to ask you if you're doing non-union work. And it's not great. You kill any future that you have when you are in your older age. You're killing it for everybody.
Right.
And I don't want my daughter to have to take care of me. I have a union and a pension. I want to be able to take care of myself. Don't let somebody tell you we're just going to do this one project. Oh my God. Because when you put that on your reel to bring to an agent, they will know immediately that you took bread out of their clients' mouths and did a non-union job.
I hear to that. We are union girls. I was FaceTiming with my dad as I came in because he had a really bad cold, and we were like, "Hi, Dad." I think a lot of you guys said hi to my dad, so thank you. And my dad and my mom are both living on their after pension. And so my mom, I grew up doing homework in the back of the SAG-AFTRA Baltimore logo. My mom was president because there was this crazy group of people running, and she was like, well, shit, I can bang a gavel. Sorry, I'm a cursor. And she was like, I do it at home as a single mom, you know? And then she went on to stay on the national board. We were actually at a national plenary together. So before we merged, I was on the after side, and she was, I guess, after SAG in the DC area. All that to say is that, you know, we have those of us who have come before you and people who've become before us and so on, you know, we've helped set rates and negotiate and work with staff and worked on the other side. So that's the thing, is that we have a pension. Like, I have 2 good girlfriends who I adore that are in like their 20s, and I understand. I'm so glad you said it. I'm just cutting my teeth. But you know what? They have no pension. She's stressed out. She's hustling. I would rather do projects, work with other people, and then bam, boom, you're SAG eligible, you're Taft-Hartley, whatever. Because people, you're not going to have a pension. You're not going to have anybody stand up for you, and you will always have that, like, she was non-union, she did it for Nini.
And agents know. It's just business-wise, agents know when you do non-union stuff. They know, and they won't touch you because you're taking money out of their pocket and out of their client's pocket.
People who say that they don't say that, if you want to be doing it and have longevity and with a great agent, she's right. Because a lot of people are like, no, I'm doing so well. And yeah, you can do well, but do you have a pension? Do you have anybody that you can call at the agency and say like, hey, like I remember being an ambassador for some show and being like, hey, we're going to do this non-yelling thing. And that helped lead into some of the non-yelling stuff that we have going on for some of the interactive stuff, or less yelling anyway, right?
This is
Less
just
yelling.
vocal stress.
Vocal stress,
We're going to
thank
put
you.
it in other language than non-yelling.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Don't scream.
So
do it.
I'm going to interject here for 1 second, because there's when I did the orientation for the Voiceover Lab, I don't know if everybody in here has done that, but if you haven't yet, go ahead and do that, because it's incredible. And you get to use the booths, and there's a wonderful booth engineer.
Booths.
The booth.
The booze in the booth.
Yes,
I'm just kidding.
In the booth.
I thought you said
booze.
booze.
The
You
booth
get
in the
to
booth.
use the booze.
That would be fun. But at any rate, they teach you how to basically, if you are offered a non-union gig, there is a way to morph it into a union gig. And they kind of walk you through that process, and you're given a packet, and it also comes in a PDF form. So I think that's super informative and super important for us to know, so that
we can help organize work.
Yeah, we can continue to strengthen and organize rather than just scrape along and, you know, be desperate and sweaty upper lipped.
Yeah,
Organize, organize.
there's no up from non-union. There's no using it to get a piece of a demo and then attracting an agent, because they see tens of thousands of people with that Voices 1, 2, 3 or that stuff. So don't be sucked into the thing like you'll do 2 or 3 of these and that's it, because they'll keep calling, and then you'll get $300, $400, $500, and then you are pariah, because there are 10 top agents that people call for talent, and then if they can't find that, they'll call other agents, but there are not a lot of agents representing non-union talent.
And if you do commercials, if you do voiceover commercials, and you do get $500 to do a big car company, in 3 years when you do join the union, if that spot is still out there in perpetuity for $350, that could cost you any other
Right.
Yeah.
car commercial, just
Right.
as an example of.
So it's much more than just the $350 and the
Yes, you have a
buyout and all of
conflict.
that. Like you
Right.
now have a conflict, and it goes for years and years. It's in perpetuity.
That happened to my friend who's, I won't say what it is, but it's a grocery chain. And then she got asked to do something else because now she's SAG eligible, and it's a huge cluster.
Yeah. I'm going to share an audience question so we can get those going. Yay, audience questions. Can you share some details about how a broadcast or feature animation voiceover session goes? What does that look like for you guys? What's the process for those of us that haven't done that yet?
You get a booking, you get an audition, you do it mostly, everybody does it out of a home booth, which is where I keep my winter coats. It's called a closet.
Yes.
And my daughter's 2007 iMac and a $65 microphone, in case anybody tells you you need a whisper booth.
Amazing.
You don't. You don't. No. 2008, I've been using this,
Love.
and it's cracked on the top, and I do just fine. You do that. You get sometimes you get adjustments, or you get a callback. You go to studio. You'll do that where they'll play with you. I would caution you never to do too much, because then you give them some ideas, and if somebody comes in with that idea as their only idea, chances are they've nailed it, and they decided they liked the way you did that, only they came in and nailed that. It's that. You go in, if you're in a group, you take your seats, they mic you, right? They do a little testy. You take your script 3 pages across so that there's no page turning. All page turning is never this. Page turning is this. You place it. And then the cast starts. They usually go from line. We're going from 1 to 15, which is just a scene break or an action break. Or if someone's not there, they'll go until that line where you're missing somebody. And I'll do like a Warner Brothers session. Sometimes we watch an animaniac. We watch an animatic, so that we can hear the timing. The writers are in the room.
What's an animatic?
Animatic is like a pencil test that is a storyboard that is animated. So it's a pencil test. There's usually no color. And you'll have the voice director and the writer saying, and he hops up here, and the voice director's writing down, you're going to need efforts. And that's what the day does. So you'll do, the ones we do for Warner Brothers, the Looney Tunes, are 7 minutes. So we do maybe 115 lines. We'll do 30 at a time and go through. Then if you are done and you're clean, you leave, and they'll keep anybody that needs to go like back and over lines. And so that's animation. And that's stretch it out for something that's 22 minutes, tighten it up for something that's just an interstitial, which is like a long commercial that is animated. Sometimes they use that as a teaser. Nickelodeon does a lot of interstitials. So those are like 3-minute commercials. So you squish, that's usually the way it is. But when you sit in the beginning and you sit in your stool, they'll go over who's doing what. Why they usually do that is to make sure that everybody's got 3 voices and no one's got 6. So they're not doing a double session, and that is because the cost
consultants.
I love that she knows that word. The cost consultants are there in the background. And that's really
You
the
get
nutshell.
the script often, most of the time now, you get the script emailed to you before.
Yeah, and sometimes with a password, you can even view the animatic. And because my session is usually at 9 a.m. and I am a vampire, and I usually don't go to bed until 3, I would like to look and see if I have to scream or if I have to be a little girl or a baby. And then I have to take something like a Tylenol PM and try to get in bed.
That's why we were texting
That's a whole
later.
other thing.
Exactly,
That's
that's
a
a
whole
whole
other
other
thing.
thing. And I was like, I gotta go to bed because I gotta get up and talk tomorrow, and it can't sound like this.
can't
That
sound like
is
this.
animation.
Okay.
Right.
That's what an animation session is like. You come 10 minutes early, you start work fired. You do your contracts right there. always have your social security card or your photo of your passport and that. So because you have to be hired, you'll do your I-9 and all that paperwork, and then they'll bring you in. And then what do I say when we finish? We go where? We go home. Get out.
And we take a picture or scan it on our phone of your
Yes,
contract.
of your
contract.
Always, Kate,
Yes.
always,
Yeah.
always. And for commercial stuff, because you could be like, they only charged me for 5 tags. Really, you did 21 tags. So you always want to take a picture of your copy. And take a hard, like, if people say, can I make a copy? I've had somebody look at me so rudely, would you like a copy of that? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, you do? Or if you've asked for a copy, yes, I'd like a copy. Thank you so much. But now with our smartphones. So yes to an animation session just like that. I know Nancy and I have done some dubbing together for the weirdest project ever. Oh my God, it was for a Netflix film. What was the title of it again?
It was called
It was about a very famous
The Naked
porn director. The Naked Director. But talk about some interesting scenes to do some Walla too. You guys know what Walla is, right? Just like crowd scenes of like 2 ladies at shopping. Like, oh, that's so nice.
That's so pretty.
I can't wear a size 5 anymore. That's really. Does anyone have any size? Do you wear an 8, right? Maybe I could borrow. Right. So that's Walla,
What do you
right?
think the dressing room looks like? Oh, I'm not going in there.
So that's Walla. So I remembered there was a lady that I owe my life to named Mickey McGowan, and she actually, oh my God, such a weird fluke. And she said, I need somebody who's like mid-range, not super high, not super low, who's funny and can improv and do some things. Again, improv, right? Singing. How can you, access this instrument as much as you can? And so for the Pixar stuff, which I've had the pleasure of doing, I was like, I don't do looping. And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, and.
In
as
fact,
you learn in
I
improv.
do.
In fact, I sure as shit do. Pardon my French. I sure do. And so talk about like learning to get up. Like we need 2 ladies, stand up. We need 3 ladies, bitch, 3 old ladies, da-da-da-da. We need a guy and a girl. You guys are like stoned at them all, da-da-da. You get up, and there's a big mic, and they call it walking in a donut sometimes. So you'll walk, and everybody passes by the mic, and you say something, or a group thing, and you'll be cued in. I mean, that's how the Bonnie's Mom stuff came from Toy Story, is from, and it's really challenging, too, because a lot with these, the looping type stuff, which I'm sure you guys might know more than I, you'll audition in front of each other. Candy, can we hear you do the mom? Nance, let's hear you do the mom. And you're like, oh my God, just do it. Just go for it. You never know. Again, like I love that. You could be auditioning for something that you're going to be getting 5 years from now. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true. You just don't know who's remembering you, who's in the room. So
I also think that's so, that's why class and taking workshops is so important too, because it keeps that muscle alive, especially doing voices in front of other people and just being super malleable and not being traumatized by being in front. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
exactly right.
And that is really good. And I know that in most Walla groups, the Walla leader takes all the good roles. Yeah. Just so you know. You're
You
there
get a
to
paycheck
fill
and
in.
lunch.
Well, you're there because he or she can say that they can get you. And then you'll be there, but you won't get to say anything so that you can get a check. That all goes to the person who organized it.
And sometimes that's really fine. Like, what's your motivation? To get a check.
to get a check.
To get paid.
I'm
Okay,
just
I'll
here
take
to
that.
sit in the dark and have some Danish. I'm curious, what is narration? What's that gig like?
Well, an audiobook is different than narration.
Well, what is an audiobook?
An audiobook can be 12 hours of finished product. And it's a marathon. The first audiobook I ever did, I didn't know. I didn't have to do it myself in my own studio. And when I showed up, I said to the director, okay, so how do we do this? Do I do each paragraph twice and you pick the best paragraph? She's on the button. She goes, no, you start at the top, you say chapter 1, and you keep reading until you make a mistake. I was like, okay.
Wow.
So not
She can
everybody
read,
wants to
Nancy.
do
Real good.
audiobooks. If you don't like to read in the first place, audiobooks are not the world for you. It's a lot of work. It's not one of the more highly paid contracts in the union. However, it is a union contract. And so it does it. It's now something like 30% of my annual income. And it's the most amount of words for the least amount of money. You're paid for the finished hour. So as opposed to the studio
finished
time
hour.
that takes to do it. So one of the things that bothers me is you're not rewarded for being efficient by more jobs. Because if they were paying the studio hour, I'm pretty quick. I'm a very good reader. I prepare. They don't know how long they don't care how long it takes me, because they're going to pay for how long the book is when it's produced. But the first one I did myself at home, I thought I was going to have to kill
yourself?
myself. It was just because I didn't even know. I didn't know how to manage the files on my computer because I had been saving a minute of something or 30 seconds, or if it was a narration audition, maybe 2 minutes. And however, if you do read well and it works for me. I'm not a person who does just audiobooks. There are people who are booked every single day of the week. They're in their closet for 6 hours a day, churning out 2 to 3 finished hours. That's really hard. But I absolutely am delighted and grateful that I have this other part of my career. But you only stop if you make a mistake, if you really feel you didn't master something, or if you know, that woman, I forgot that she's the one who's short-tempered, because I don't always do different voices because you're not doing a cartoon. You're reading a book to people. But I'll have to, I have notes. I cast everybody in the books for myself. So it's people, I might cast Candy next week. You never know. Or it's famous people. And I'll have to refer to my notes and say, oh, no, I didn't do Candy. I did Wendy. I got to go back and fix that. But it's a very different, and it's a very solitary thing to do. I still prefer, as do most narrators, to go into a studio, go into Random House or Diane and do it then. But it's a lot of doing it yourself.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a union gig.
Yeah.
Union gig.
Goes for pension and welfare and health care.
There's also, I've been talking to a lot of agents, and they're talking about the new podcast. There's a new podcast contract. So that's
You have a podcast.
I do have.
Tell us about your podcast.
Oh, Lori, thanks for asking. Well, actually, we are releasing tonight. So fabulous Eric Schuford and I do a podcast that was born out of me signing up for the Voiceover Lab and being in the solo booth with him, and he was giving me direction on it, and we were kind of awkwardly close. And I was like, well, this is awkward and weird and kind of funny. This would be a great podcast. Two people that know nothing about each other, and we stick ourselves in the solo booth and just have 15-minute long conversations, and we go on Instagram and ask people for topic suggestions, and they give them to us, and we discuss them without knowing our value system or too much about each other. So that's been super, super fun. We are on Instagram, too, in the solo booth, so come find us. And
Say it
now
again, it was two
in the solo booth. And now we are branching out into 3 in the solo booth. So our first guest was the prolific and amazing casting director, Sarah Jane Sherman. And our second guest is Candy Milo. And we are launching that tonight. So please check us out. It's super fun.
It was fun. It was really fun to do. And then people from Instagram asked
the
oddest, most fabulous questions. And it was as if we'd been drinking.
Yeah.
We were laughing
I love
and
doing it.
answering questions.
And it gets hot in there, and it
gets really mushy.
It's like the jungle.
Getting hot in here, so take off all your
clothes. Okay. And my second podcast is called Sky
We're here
Talks.
all week, folks.
It's basically like a TED Talk, but conversations with really inspirational people that do incredible things from everything from people in the arts to people that are masters of cryptocurrency to art curation. I mean, it's just an incredible evening. And it's recorded live at the Lion Lofts in this very zhuzhy penthouse called the Sky Lounge.
Woo!
So yeah, that's what I'm up to. Thanks for asking, Laura.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
and now we have a contract?
Yes, so we have a contract, which is delicious and wonderful. It's brand new, so
Cool.
talk to your agents about that.
That's really great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know, and I think about coming from the theater, like Equity, and then AFTRA, right, and all of our unions and all that kind of stuff. It's like AFTRA used to get so much crap, and I get it, but because it comes from an organizing background, like let's get this station, then let's get this station, then this station, and this station. And so now we're sort of like that again, where everything is expanding and multiplying, and so you have to just be patient. And you see now, audiobooks, podcasts, these things are all, these didn't even, back in my day, we didn't have podcasts. I had a freaking pager and would get to the cell phone and peer on my hands when I lived in New York.
Remember
you know?
this? Boop, so that your machine would rewind.
Yes.
You remember that? You would call you had a touch tone. I do remember rotary, but you would call your phone and then you would answer. And then as it was ringing, as soon as you heard the machine, and it was an answering machine,
I still
as
have
soon as it
one.
went, hi, this is Candy. I'm not home. You'd have to go, beep, and then you had to move it over the mouthpiece to make sure that it got the right thing. And then you could hear it go, flip, And if you heard flip up and you didn't hear anything, you can hang up because there was no messages. But if you heard you'd wait. You had to listen to them because if you didn't listen to them, they'd be erased. Yeah. It was the worst thing. So first you had to find a fucking quarter. First you had to find a quarter, then find a receiver that didn't have gum on it, and then put your little pocket thing right up there. And if you shared the machine, you had to give it to your roommate. This is what, so like when my daughter is like, just put it on your iPhone. What are you thinking? And I'm like, I'm thinking of, you have a callback for, I'm like, what? Don't break. Cassette tapes, don't break.
Amazing.
Sorry.
No, that was performance
I'm
art.
old.
Yeah, we just saw a whole situation going on. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Candy Milo, everybody. Candy Milo. Okay, one more audience question here. What are the differences and similarities when voicing broadcast and feature animation?
Broadcast and feature animation. Feature animation meaning
I'm
feature stuff.
assuming feature film animation,
And
but
then broadcast would be cartoons?
Cartoons. Yeah?
Television or
TV. Oh, okay.
Versus film?
I would
So
assume
a lot of
so,
the times,
yeah.
it's really interesting. A lot of the film stuff is that real read. You know, I can say for Pixar, like some of the stuff that's just a nice normal mom. And like, how are you, honey? Bonnie, get down from there. You know, Bonnie. I said Bonnie's name a lot, which is great. Yay, Bonnie. So that can be very conversational. It's very much, it's very much like cinematic acting, as is games. I don't do a lot of them because I just don't like to scream. I'm not a great screamer. But those are also very real and very cinematic and can be like right here. And someone's right here. I'm like, Sergeant Milo, you need to get on the ground and da-da-da-da. So that stuff is more, is very much more cinematic and acting. But they're still huge over-the-top characters, So it just really depends. But all that to say, like, have that versatility. And I was thinking up here, like, when you do either stand-up or, how storytelling is really big, and then you don't have to make the commitment to doing stand-up. So you're like, I'm going to a store at the blah, blah, blah coffee house with Anya tonight, and we're going to be doing, Anya? Yeah. No, so you'll have stuff and you'll have different characters like your mom, and you're doing it, let's say the theme is Mother's Day or whatever, and you're doing your mom's voice. That's my mom's voice. But then there's all these other characters, and I find that that's a great way to practice like your character voice and also interacting, so that again, you're fast on your feet, and all of us have like 4 or 5, 6 people-ish. It's always like family members and ex, something like that, where you can immediately draw on those people, and those come in handy when you're in a session, for sure. Whether it's the broadcast stuff, because that also is conversational, over the top, and same with film.
I don't know. For me, I don't know that there is a difference. I'm hired. Listen to me. I'm going to be 59. I sound like I'm a 7-year-old boy. I'm not going to book mid-range female. I have to have that in my arsenal, but I'm brought in specifically for what it is that I do, which is my point of view on things is strong, that my characters always know where they're coming from. They're either the hero or the jerk. They're never really a sidekick. I'm not a great sidekick. So I think that for animation on television, animation on streaming, which is another thing. And then for me, the films that I've done, I did Spirited Away and Jimmy Neutron, and I just did Rumble for Paramount that comes out. They're always me on some level, and then I leave the quality to the production. So there's the guy in the booth that controls my levers, but I think that it's not so much the genre and the milieu, like, oh, it's a film or that. It depends on the world that you're in. Rumble is a big film. It's really loud. And then, the animation that I do is Saturday morning. I'm not a great late night person because I don't do the real thing. Well, this is me. It's unaccepted, and I'm not going to change. So, because I'm going to be old in January. So I don't really change. So for me, it's great to hear that there's this different thing. I I don't see that. I go in and I usually book when I do what it is that I do, and then I do more when I get in the room, when I do what I do. And then they're like, oh, you should try this thing here. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't book Walla, really, because I don't really know people in those groups. But I wish I could. That's a great paycheck, FYI. If you can do that, that's like printing money. It's better. Maybe I'll put one together. We'll all be in it. What do you think? Go ahead. I don't know. What do you think, Nance?
I don't think I can add to. I can't add to that.
Why? Is it against your religion?
Nancy.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Great. Nancy's done.
I'd say
wish
it's
that-
been asked and answered. That's all
Yeah.
I would say.
Oh, I would say that we should have all worn leopard because I just feel that you're bookending this so beautifully. I just love
Just a touch of animal print.
just a touch of animal print. That's the name of my
We
biography.
can if you want.
What is it by Candy
don't know.
Milo?
I think
Just
you're
a touch of animal print.
But that goes to like knowing your type, like knowing what your voice sounds like, knowing what's a good time to record. To get that real read, I record at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Like I don't do my audition, and in the morning I'm just like, I just sound like a dude. And so, knowing when, if you're an exercise person and that helps you, do you need to calm down and meditate? I need to do a combo of both. And so know what you like and what you excel at. And what you get a kick out of, especially for animation, that's gonna ring true for the producer, casting person, and the viewing audience.
Do we have more questions and then
know.
we run out of time, or do you guys want to just shout them out? Because I'd rather have
Yeah,
that than
sure.
try to do
Yeah.
one-on-one. Let's answer some. Eric, what do you think? Too much animal print on the stage, or what?
We do have a question over here.
Oh,
I
wait,
believe.
what?
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about narration?
I think we'll leave that to Nancy. I haven't done a really good narration piece in a long time, but I can tell you from what
I do more audiobooks than narration, but I think that narration has changed in what I'm seeing. It's more, I don't want to say more honest, because I don't think the other people were not honest. It's smaller, is what
It's a
I
real
think
read.
it is.
It's a
more
you to
intimate.
me.
Although, you know what? It really depends on what it is you're narrating. I mean, it's like anything else. If you're telling a story, I'm thinking of one of our colleagues, Lynn Zagers, in the audience, and she narrates Deadly Women. So her narration, if you ever go on and listen to it, it suits the creepy show that she's narrating. No offense, Lynn. It's a creepy show.
That's awesome.
It's about deadly women. It's about women killers. So, but I do find a lot of the narration, if you want to know what you're narrating to. So what are they seeing?
Right.
And remember, if they're seeing something, we have to do less because they're seeing it.
Correct. And also being able to read well and being, happy with words.
Well, you know what? Can we ask? Can Lynn Ann answer this from the
Lynn Ann,
audience for us?
please.
Lynn Ann.
Lynn Ann, would
Do you mind
she
coming
asked
up?
if there is a timing issue.
Yes, there is. I'm going to repeat what you said just so that we can hear it for streaming. So narration, you tell a story, and you have a point of view. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So from the audition, you are chosen based on the fact that they appreciate your point of view. Okay, so for Deadly... Great, so your specific point of view was that you were judging, and it was not okay. Great.
And in audiobooks, just so you know, a point of view, it always has to have a point of view as well. It doesn't matter if it's nonfiction. It doesn't matter if it's a book about business, if it's a fiction. There has to be a point of view. In a nonfiction, especially if it's a memoir or you're the author, and that point of view, whatever the author is telling you. But there's always a point of view, and it changes in fiction sometimes. If you're a reader, you know this. You'll get to a chapter, and you'll be like, oh, this is Clarice's chapter. Even if it's still told third person, this is where inside Clarice's mind, which is a different point of view. I'm not saying my voice changes, but my point of view changes as opposed to when you're the spurned lover, the guy who didn't get the girl, in the next you say, oh, this is Harvey's point of view here. No. So point of view, it's again a story.
And I think that that's true of every single form of voiceover, acting,
I just
dancing,
wrote a book.
singing. It's point of view.
Right. And that one of the things that I had written a book 20 years ago and sent it to a literary agent. And not to be funny, but I used this line for almost 20 years in my club act. She said, I've never had an autobiography written in the third person. And I said, well, it was a rough room. My childhood was a rough room. So I put it aside and I just rewrote it this year. And all I concentrated on, there was a yellow sticky on my computer that said POV. Just remember that it is the 7 to 16-year-old me telling this story. And every time I got snarky or something hit me a little too hard and I wanted to run around or I wanted to tangentialize and go this way, I just looked at my little sticker and said, stay with this. And it's being read right now by 7 author friends of mine.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very hard. But I was going to say, in everything, Wendy, you're right. Everything that we do is POV, point
from
of
like
view.
from old Navy
Everything.
pajama bottoms to Tonight at 5
Yeah.
to an animated character. So everything has a point of view. You can make it different. Like sometimes going opposite type. Do you guys find this too? So for an animation thing, everyone's gonna, or like I'm not gonna be that girl. That'll be her. If I'm doing like the queen who's like, oh, look at him, he's coming to steal my daughter. Or what if I make her like a little tipsy? Well, right? So if I add on a different flavor, a different emotion, if she's very condescending, what if she's very terse and she's uptight or something
Yeah,
like that, or
yeah.
she's just like ha, 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 ha. She's kind of like zany and just out of her, she's medicated. Pick a point of view, add on a different emotion, and boom, there's a totally different
Yeah.
read.
Storytelling, right, Lynette? Right? It is all
Storytelling.
storytelling.
Yeah, all story, yeah.
You got to tell your story, what you see in
Yeah.
it. You can't imagine. I think the worst thing, probably you book Deadly Women, because you told your point of view rather than trying to figure out what you thought they might have wanted. And that's a big, huge mistake, to try to second guess what they want. Oh, I need to play this because they've got this person doing this role, so I'm going to do this. You. Trust me.
Yep.
You do you, boo.
That's great advice.
What other
So-
questions?
Questions over here. I saw her hand up.
I'm going to repeat the question just so that we can get it on the mic. No, not at all. You're doing great. Great. So the question is, when you're doing an audiobook, you go until you make the mistake. When you hit the snag and you have the mistake, do you pick up right from where you left off, or do you start again at the top of the chapter and
No,
begin
you
again?
pick up from the sentence. Or if I have an engineer, I might say, I need to take this from the top of the paragraph because I need the run that comes with it. But normally you pick it up from the top of the beginning of the sentence you messed up. And if you're in a really technical, I do a lot of nonfiction, I can sometimes pick it up. I mean, I've been doing this a while now. I'm going to pick it up from that comma right there because I don't want to have to say those names from the Middle East again. I said them once right, so pick it up from there. And the one trick I will tell you with pickups is once we've made a mistake, there's this little part of us that's like, okay, I'm going to do it right this time, and that's not the energy where we came in before. So I just have to always say, I'm just still in the same place I was before, because those are the pickups. Yeah, because those are the pickups you hear. And if I'm doing it myself at home, I do what they call a punch and roll. So I go back and punch myself in so that I don't have to go back and edit out the error. I'm doing it in real time. If you have an engineer, you just pick it up.
Great.
So
Thank
that
you.
answers that
We have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
Do you mind speaking about age discrimination? Like if you have sent in your tape and then all of a sudden, a person like myself shows up and they're like, what?
First of all, I'm going to repeat the question so we can hear it, but you're a gorgeous person, number 1. But number 2, The question was, what do you do, or have you experienced age discrimination when you do a voiceover audition and then the physical person walks in and they are a different age than was expected?
Here's the really good news. In animation, they don't care. If you bring the goods, you bring the goods. The problem is getting the audition. And therein lies the rub. And there is a certain age that you hit that you become sexually undesirable. And in animation, this is the problem. We are the only sex that is aged out. Tom Kenny still does SpongeBob, and I think he sounds great, but he doesn't sound like SpongeBob. He sounds like Tom Kenny doing SpongeBob. And then they decided they wanted a younger woman to do Dexter's Lab. And even though I sound exactly like I've always sounded, I was aged out. And that's how it happens. But it's more insidious than that. It is you at your age even getting the audition to convince an agent or an agent's assistant to let you read on that. Because I get cast out of my agency, and because I'm not nice, I will say to them, don't cast me. Send me the entire packet, and I'll tell you what I can do on it, and I will never embarrass you, and I will never embarrass myself. But when we get a new person, they need somebody age 50 to 70, and I will always type back, thanks so much, IMDb me, you represent me. Just take a look at what it is that I do, and it ain't this. So I think that your battle and any older person's battle is once you get to the studio, they're so happy to see you. They don't really care because you filled the job. It's getting there that takes retraining of everyone around you to allow you to read on that, to have the opportunity to read on something that you don't look anything like. That's the issue, and that is needs to be vocal, and you just need to self-advocate for something like that. But we just got a brand new assistant who was sending me 23, when I said IMDb me, then I got 23-year-old girls, and I'm like, you didn't IMDb me. I do boys. That's what I do, and I can do grannies, and I can do this, but I can't do that. This is what I am a mom. This is what my mom sounds like. So I would say I don't find it in a studio, and I don't, they did for a while, Disney for a while was having you submit 8x10s and agencies, and I think maybe even SAG shut that shit right down, and that they couldn't ask you to submit anything.
Although it's very hard to hide how old you are now or what you look like.
Right.
When I
because
first
of social
started
media.
out, people would never put a picture on their VO demo box or anything. You would never put it on there because you didn't want to type yourself out of something age-wise or type-wise. Like they think your voice is sexy and then they don't think you are. But it is a lot harder to hide that now because they can Google you. They just Google you. Also, if you've been around a while, they know that you're of a certain age. I never played young as a voiceover person.
You
I know.
and me both. We're like, anyway.
I never played young. So in some ways, I've kind of reached the age everybody always thought I was for like 25 years. But finally, she's still around.
Yeah, and I think I'll tell you another thing that I do is that when I feel like I've been Candy Milo'd out, we know what she can do, I will audition under a different name.
I'm using Candy Milo myself.
Don't suck.
Just don't go FICOR and don't use another name altogether, right?
Right, but I have
Amen.
done that where I've said I was the voice of Bob's Big Boy, and I auditioned in The Voice, and I auditioned as C. Milo. And they went back and forth. I had auditioned as Candy. I did the same voice. I auditioned as Candy Milo. I auditioned a second time, same voice as C. Milo. And they never got it. And they were like, we want to hire C. Milo. And I'm like, you didn't like Candy. It's the same. So I think that there is that. But yes, I think, which is why I tell you how old I am. As Nancy said, you can't hide it anymore. I can't correct my Wikipedia page, my own page about me.
I cannot figure out
that
for the life of me how
says
to
that
do
I
it,
am
yeah.
10 years older than I am. So I let it go. I'm like, I'm 70. I look amazing. Don't I?
And on your damn dating profile, it connects with
58
something. I'm
is
like,
the
I'm
new
not, because
70.
I'm 53. I'm not going to lie about that. They can, anybody can Google
Sure.
anybody.
Right, and
Yeah.
I think that's it. But I believe that once you get in the heart of the beast, it's a beautiful community. We're really good people. It's why I stay in this community, and they don't really care. The studios are amazing. It's filled with young people who are
Who actually appreciate folks that have like life experience
Yes,
under
they
their belt.
love
who like,
it.
You're like a real person. You know,
It's
you actually have
exactly-
some story.
it's
How
just-
are you doing for Christmas? How's your parents?
it's just
You get
getting
know each
to
other.
it's just getting to the gig, and it's getting the opportunity to have the copy, which is what is called, what you're reading is the copy. That's the hard thing, and that's where I think it's harder for women. As Nancy said, there's 500 times the copy for men than there is for women, and I've said to them many times, are they married to that being a man? Are they married to that being a man? I'd love to take a crack at that.
I will tell you, though, I did read something recently, and I wish I could tell you where. When they do focus groups, you'd be surprised at how many women respond to a man's voiceover differently than they respond to a woman's voiceover. So those are just a bunch
Yeah,
of
no, it's-
hillbillies, I'm convinced. Like trailers,
Trailers.
that they
Yes.
respond to
Yeah.
a man's voice more. They believe the man more than they believe the woman.
Sally
Damn it.
Kellerman had the hardest time selling that Hidden
Valley
Valley
Ranch
Ranch
dressing.
because it had been a man for all these years. They hid the sex of Terry Apple, who had this voice for Home Depot, and it was. Some of you are too young to have were even born, but it was a stick figure. It was like a drawing, and she walked across, and she was. And it was this little stick figure, and all she did was talk about wanting to build things. It's the first time you ever heard this kind of a voice. And people were like, what is it? Is it a man or is it a woman? We just don't.
Now they would be like, it's non-binary.
Yes, that's it. And it's non-cisgender. That's all we're going to say.
be they,
It
as
would
it
be
should
they.
be, right?
So I say that, it is, we still fight a battle based on, and forgive me, and I'm going to take it kind of lightly, a patriarchal model, because that's still who is mainly at the top. But I think we're coming up, and I think we're evening it out, and it's spreading. I would like to see it across all races, which is, that is my big thing. Opportunity. Where Lori, we were at. That's Voiceover, and that woman got up and asked what's going to happen to us with all the equality happening. And I was like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. You're going to have to sit down is what's going to happen. But I think that there is not an erasure of anybody else while we offer opportunity and voice to somebody else. That's that whole thing about you don't need to have a job by watching me fall.
Right.
I don't have to be harmed for you to have success. It's not a fucking pie. It is this. The shit is on the bottom. The best rise to the top. And the funnel goes outward. There's room for us all. So if I have to sit back while somebody else takes the mic and takes the gig, I'm fine. And as Nancy said, we'll find something else to do. Right? We'll just go
Beautifully
like,
said.
right?
Beautifully said.
Right?
Thank you, Candy.
Amen.
One more question? Yes.
Go ahead, Lori. Promo.
So
This is promos. We're talking promos.
We're talking promos. So promos. There's a great woman. I wish I knew who it was. It was between me and her and just like two other women for all the NBC stuff because I love watching The Voice, right? So I remember auditioning and I was, and Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. See, there I went into my voiceover voice. But promos are definitely they are still having a real read, if you will. I mean, Steve Mackel, if you listen to, and Townsend Coleman, who are colleagues of ours who did still do have. Huh? Oh yeah, and Tom Pinto are great storytellers. So it's like telling storyteller, but sort of quickly. And like I must have done like almost 80 tags today. Tomorrow at 5, tonight at 5, coming up next, continues next. So it's being able to be fast. That's why improv even comes in handy for promo announcing. You have to be able to speak well. But even the more like laid back stuff, like for NBC, they wanted it very like either Oprah. This was so funny. The spec was like. It was Oprah or it was like Juliana Margulies. So basically they wanted somebody who spoke from their gut, from their passion, like next on The Voice. It's just, again, listening to sometimes there's still that hard hitting. So like, coming up at 9, the news is coming up next. So sometimes it's very newsy, sometimes it's more real, but listening to each genre, but it's getting into a session, being able to hit it and fast. And you got to be able to be close to your studio. Like I'm starting to do more affiliate work. You got to be able to be on call. And so that's something.
There's a great promo teacher, Jody Gottlieb, in town, and Jeff Howell. They teach great sessions, really, really short. Punctuation is key. Yep. Punctuation is there. It's not something that you elide and go over.
You want to lose it for commercials.
Right. You want to lose that. And for animation, you make punctuation your. But for promos, it's there for a reason. And again, point of view is right there. But I would suggest, I had taken some great stuff from Jody Gottlieb because I don't have a promo voice, and it was stopping me until she said, I don't know why you're not doing promos for Nickelodeon, where it sounds like, right? So I'm just going to say, and I know Lori teaches, but I just thought I would throw that out to you because it's like any skill. It is a craft. There's a part of this that is a craft. So I just wanted to put that out there. She was helpful to me. So, Jeff Howell.
H-O-W-E-L-L.
I was just going to add that one of the things I always want to mention is anytime I have reinvented myself so darn many times, but when I do, if I'm here in the on-camera world and I decide to do voiceover, I don't get to move over right here. I have to learn it, and I have to take the step down and come back up. Yes, so, because of these, pardon me?
Yes, I said, oh boy, yes,
because this is, each thing has its own style. I mean, promo has a style. You have to learn the technique and the skills it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's all acting, but each thing has its own set of specific things you have to, animation, even the most real animation has an energy that's different than a laid-back, on-camera commercial voiceover. So I just want to say, when we talk about, I'm always studying, because if I try to do something new, I really stink at the,
You have one chance to make a first impression. So you may as well do it well. Even though the commercial read is very real and I just woke up and I need to take a Sudafed kind of sound sometimes, you still need to know what you're doing. And can I just say something really quickly about,
please.
So I don't know about you guys, but I, maybe because I've reverted to a teenager, but I'm obsessed with Instagram and all this kind of fun stuff. I personally, when people are like, you don't need a demo, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Because somebody, even if your agent is just submitting your actual read, what if I can't tell you, and you guys know this, I've been on a Veil for a commercial, you're so excited, you go in and my website is up. They're like, hey, oh, you're on something that you want a very simple web presence. It's easy to have if I can do it. Now, she's obviously very tech savvy now, Nancy. You can have her do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. But you should live somewhere. And people want to know what you're doing. Like I posted about put my fucking dog on Instagram because he's so cute, And so
he has a mustache.
Yeah, because I wipe his face so it looks like he would good morning, and he's twirled a mustache like he's a circus, like Barnum and Bailey. But I personally think your demo should be amazing and spot on. And when you need to change them, Make your money, save your money for that. Like every once in a while, you need new tires. Sometimes you're going to just need to update your demos. Your pictures need to look like you. You need to sound like you. Simple web presence. Get on social media. Just be you. Don't be forced. Don't only talk a bit about the business, but don't complain either. Be real. Be you, because people look you up. We all do it, right? We all do it. So do it.
Amen. Thank you. All right. So to wrap things up,
with the bow,
ladies, briefly, can you each share, if you were to tell your younger selves one thing, what would you say about how your career has gone and kind of the longevity of it and the diversification of it, everything you guys have talked about? What would you tell yourself, your younger self, at this point? Oh my God, I didn't mean for it to be so.
Where to go?
Very emotional. I would tell myself to acknowledge your accomplishments. I would tell myself to slow down. I would tell myself to laugh more, to breathe more, that sleep is the sexiest thing ever. If I could date sleep, I would date sleep. It's also the most important thing for my voice is sleep and steam. I would tell myself, find your tribe. I would literally tell myself to slow down, enjoy the ride, because it just goes like this. You guys, we all know it. It just goes like this. And Candy so beautifully put it, like if I need to sit out a chapter or 2 or 3, then all of a sudden, you're trending, you're whatever, that's great. But I would, and I would work through some of my family shit so I'm not so mad, so I'm freed up, so I can really be present there for my work and for my family and friends and yeah.
Well, that was delicious. Yeah.
I would say to my younger self, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine just the way you are. You're fine just the way you look. You're fine just the way you came out. And I would offer a suggestion to journal so that you can recognize in writing patterns. Because I believe that self-sabotage is real. I believe it happens to women more than it does to men, because we have been taught to step back and let others lead the way, and to push forward when it's safe. So I would say that it's always safe, and I'm fine, and you'll be fine. You're more than enough. You're so enough. It's ridiculous.
Beautiful.
I think I would say continue to prepare and work as hard as every audition as you want, but then trust that you can really only do it one way. And I know we're saying there's variations, but really I can only be me in the audition. And I used to spend a lot of time, and I still get hung up on it. Well, what if I could be this? What if they want this, and I hear this in the description, as opposed to, you know what, I just can do it the way I can do it. So I don't know. That doesn't.
That is so smart.
I would just kind of trust that what I'm doing is it, knowing that it's not always me and the way I'm going to do it. I am not always what's going to get the job.
Yeah, and people put you down to make themselves feel better. What anybody thinks of you, none of your fucking business. So that I would definitely tell you.
I want to point out that I'm the only one who hasn't used a 4-letter word tonight on the stage.
Well, you get the award.
That's some good shit, Nancy.
I could now, but now that I said it, I got to keep my string going.
Exactly. Ladies, thank you so much. This has just been incredible. Can we thank
Thank you, Wendy.
Lori, Candy, and Nancy Linari? Thank you.